Imagine a city where the air hums with the promise of wealth and the sting of salt, where ships groan against wooden docks, and the cries of merchants blend with the laughter of sailors fresh from the sea. Welcome to Ostia, Rome's beating heart of trade, where fortunes are made and secrets are sold under the flicker of oil lamps. In these crowded streets, one woman begins her day, not with the grandeur of marble temples or the clink of gold coins, but with the quiet resolve to survive another dawn. Her name is Emilia, and her story, raw and unfiltered, pulls back the curtain on a world history rarely dares to show. You're watching History Orbit, where we uncover the untold lives that shaped empires. If you love diving into the gritty, human side of the past, hit that subscribe button and join our journey through time. Drop a comment to tell us where you're tuning in from, whether it's a quiet midnight in Tokyo or a sunny afternoon in New York. Let's step into Emilia's world together, where every morning is a battle for dignity in a city that never sleeps. Picture a room so small you can touch both walls without stretching. A cubiculum carved into the upper floor of a tavern where the scent of sour wine and roasted fish clings to the air like a stubborn guest. The walls, rough with crumbling plaster, bear the scratches of countless nights, names and curses etched by hands long gone. Emilia stirs on a mattress of straw, its sharp edges poking through a threadbare cloth, the faint rustle mingling with the distant crash of waves against Ostia's harbour. It's barely dawn, the sky a bruise of purple and grey, but the port city is already alive, its pulse throbbing through the creak of carts and the shouts of dock workers unloading grain from Alexandria. Emilia's eyes flutter open, heavy with the weight of too little sleep, her body curled against the chill that seeps through the thin wooden shutter. This is no palace, no villa with mosaic floors. This is her home, her workplace, her world, a space where dreams are as scarce as silence. She sits up, her fingers brushing a cracked clay pot in the corner. Its contents a gritty mix of chalk powder and ochre for her face, a bone comb tangled with her dark hair, and a bronze mirror so worn it distorts her reflection like a half-remembered dream. The room smells of sweat, smoke, and the faint tang of the sea, a reminder that Ostia never lets you forget its restless energy. There's no running water, no private basin to wash away the night's grime. A chipped bucket in the corner serves a purpose she tries not to dwell on, its presence a daily humiliation. Yet Emilia moves with purpose, her hand steady as she sweeps the dust and stray straw from the floor, the broom's bristles worn to stubs. This is her ritual, a small act of control in a life where so little is hers to command. She lights a tiny oil lamp, its weak flame casting shadows that dance like ghosts across the walls, illuminating graffiti that boasts of past visitors, their boasts and complaints scrawled in uneven letters. Emilia, swift and sweet, one reads, a rare compliment that makes her lips twitch in a fleeting smile. She doesn't linger on it. There's no time for sentiment when the day demands survival. Ostia, in the 1st century CE, is a city of contrasts, a gateway where Rome's wealth pours in and its vices spill out. Ships from across the empire dock here, bringing grain, wine, and silks, but also men with coins to spend and desires to sate. Courtesans like Emilia are as much a part of this economy as the merchants haggling over amphorae, or the scribes tallying cargo. Her cubiculum, tucked above a tavern near the docks, is one of many such rooms in Ostia, where women work in the shadows of the city's prosperity. These spaces, called lupenaria, are not the grand brothels of Rome's elite but gritty, functional chambers where life and labor blur into one. The tavern below is already stirring, the clatter of cups and the low rumble of voices signaling the start of another day. Emilia's world is one of constant noise, the hum of a city that thrives on movement. Yet she's learned to find rhythm in its chaos. She pulls a threadbare tunic over her shoulders, its fabric rough against her skin, and ties her hair back with a strip of cloth. The mirror reflects a face that's still young, though the lines around her eyes tell a different story, each one earned through nights of vigilance and days of scrutiny. She's not alone in this life, others in nearby rooms stir as well. Their coughs and murmurs a quiet chorus through the thin walls. There's no privacy here, no doors to lock, only curtains that sway with every gust from the harbor. Emilia's possessions are few: a comb, a pot of makeup, a pair of worn sandals, but they're hers, hard-won and fiercely guarded. She tucks them into a corner, away from prying hands, knowing that theft is as common as the rats that scurry across the floorboards. The city's pulse quickens as the sun creeps higher, its light barely reaching the narrow alley outside her window. Ostia's streets are a labyrinth of stone and mud, lined with shops selling everything from Egyptian linen to smoked fish, their owners shouting to draw the morning crowd. Emilia knows these streets well, every corner a stage for her trade, every passerby a potential client or critic. She steps to the window, the shutter creaking as she pushes it open, letting in a gust of salty air that carries the cries of gulls and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. This is her world, vibrant and unforgiving, where survival means being seen without being vulnerable, a balance she's mastered through years of practice. She takes a deep breath, the air sharp with the promise of a new day, and begins her morning preparations, knowing that in Ostia, every moment is a performance. The city's history is woven into its stones, from the grand warehouses that store Rome's grain to the temples where priests offer prayers for safe voyages. Emilia's life, though, is lived in the margins, in the spaces between the city's grandeur and its grit. Historical records, from inscriptions to legal texts, tell us that courtesans in Ostia were both essential and marginalized. Their work taxed and regulated, yet scorned by the elite. They were not the high-class heterae of Athens or the pampered mistresses of Rome's senators, but working women who cater to a diverse clientele: sailors fresh from Carthage, merchants from Gaul, even the occasional centurion with a purse full of sesterces. Emilia's cubiculum, like those found in archaeological sites such as the Lupina in Pompeii, is a testament to this reality: small, functional, and etched with the stories of those who lived there. The graffiti on her walls, much like those uncovered in Ostia's ruins, serves as both advertisement and archive, a public ledger of fleeting encounters. Emilia's day begins with these small acts of defiance, cleaning her space, arranging her tools, preparing her mind for the hours ahead. She knows the city's rhythm, the ebb and flow of trade that brings men to her door, each one a chance to earn enough to eat, to pay the lino who demands a cut, to dream, however faintly, of a life beyond these walls. The tavern below grows louder, the voices of early patrons mingling with the clatter of wooden cups and the sizzle of meat on a grill. Emilia pauses, her hand resting on the broom, listening to the world outside. A sailor's laugh, sharp and fleeting, cuts through the din, a reminder of the transient nature of her clients. She's learned to read them, their accents, their postures, the weight of their coin purses, each detail a clue to whether they'll pay fairly or haggle until her patience frays. The lamp flickers, its oil nearly spent, and she makes a mental note to buy more. If today's earnings allow, every expense is a calculation, every coin a step toward or away from freedom. The historical record tells us that many courtesans in Ostia were enslaved or bound by debt, their earnings funneled to pimps or brothel owners. Yet Emilia clings to the hope of buying her liberty, a dream as fragile as the lamp's flame. She moves to the mirror, her fingers dipping into the clay pot, smearing chalk powder across her cheeks to mask the fatigue that lingers from last night's long hours. The bronze reflects a face that's both hers and not, a mask she wears for the city's gaze. She combs her hair, the bone teeth snagging on knots, and applies a dab of cheap perfume, its scent sharp and floral, a weapon against the tavern's stale air. This is her armor, as vital as any soldier's shield, crafted to catch eyes and deflect judgment. Ostia's streets are waking now, the market stalls opening, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the briny tang of the harbor. Emilia knows she must be ready soon, her appearance a promise of allure in a city that thrives on appearances. She steps back, assessing her reflection, a woman caught between survival and ambition. Her life a thread in Ostia's vibrant tapestry. The city's history is not just in its temples or its trade routes, but in the lives of women like Emilia, whose stories are etched in fleeting inscriptions and whispered in the alleys. She slips on her sandals, their soles worn thin from countless walks through Ostia's muddy streets, and adjusts her tunic, knowing that soon she'll trade it for the toga that marks her trade. The day is young, but already she feels its weight, the endless negotiation of body and soul in a city that demands both. As she prepares to step into the world below, the tavern's noise swells, a reminder that Ostia waits for no one. Emilia takes one last look at her cubiculum, its walls a silent witness to her resilience, and steels herself for the day ahead. The city is calling its pulse quickening with every shout and every coin that changes hands. And Emilia must answer not just as a courtesan, but as a woman carving her place in a world that both needs her and turns away. What does it take to transform for a day in Ostia's relentless streets? To become the woman the city demands? That's where Emilia's story takes us next, into the rituals that shape her body and spirit. For the challenges of the dawn. Emilia stands at the threshold of her cubiculum, the salt-laced breeze of Ostia brushing her face as she prepares to meet the city's relentless dawn. The tavern below hums with life, its wooden beams creaking under the weight of early patrons, their laughter sharp and fleeting like the gulls circling the harbor. She adjusts her tunic, its rough with catching on her calloused fingers, and steps into the narrow stairwell, each step a descent into the world that both sustains and judges her. The question lingers, heavy as the morning mist. What does it take to transform for a day in Ostia's unforgiving streets? To become the woman this port city demands? For Emilia, the answer begins not with the bright toga of her trade, or the practiced smile she'll wear, but with the simple humbling act of cleansing herself in a city where privacy is a luxury, and cleanliness a fleeting victory. The alley outside the tavern is already stirring, the cobblestones slick with dew and the leavings of last night's revelry, a mix of spilled wine and discarded fish bones. Emilia navigates the narrow path with practiced steps, her sandals slapping against the uneven stones, the sound swallowed by the growing din of Ostia's waking markets. The air carries the sharp tang of brine from the nearby Tiber, mingled with the earthy scent of fresh-baked bread from a nearby oven, a reminder of the city's endless appetite. She clutches a small clay jug, its surface chipped from years of use, and heads toward the public fountain at the corner of the forum, where Ostia's workers gather to rinse away the night. The fountain, a simple basin fed by an aqueduct, is already crowded. Women balancing water jars on their shoulders, sailors splashing their faces with rough laughter, children darting underfoot in search of stray coins. Emilia slips into the throng, her presence unremarkable among the city's laborers, her tunic blending with the muted browns and grays of their garments. She dips her jug into the cool water, its surface rippling under the weight of a dozen hands, and splashes it across her face, the shock of cold waking her fully. There's no soap, no perfumed oils like those the wealthy matrons use in their private villas. But Emilia has natron, a gritty powder of salt and soda she carries in a small cloth pouch. She sprinkles it into her palm, mixes it with water and scrubs her skin, the abrasive grains scouring away the sweat and dust of her cubiculum. The sensation is harsh, almost punishing, yet it's a ritual she's come to cherish, a moment of control in a life dictated by others' whims. Her hands move quickly, practiced, rinsing her mouth with a sip of watered wine from a flask. It's sour by a poor substitute for freshness, but better than the fountain's questionable purity. She glances around, catching the eye of a fishmonger who winks too boldly, and she turns away. Her expression neutral, knowing that every glance in Ostia is a transaction waiting to happen. The fountain's water is a communal necessity, its flow a testament to Rome's engineering. Yet it's also a stage where Emilia must perform her invisibility, blending in to avoid the scrutiny of matrons or the leers of idle men. Historical records from inscriptions to Pliny's writings tell us that Ostia's fountains were vital to daily life, serving everyone from slaves to senators. Yet for women like Emilia, they were also a place of vulnerability where judgment hung as heavy as the morning air. She finishes quickly, filling her jug for later use, and moves through the crowd. Her steps light but purposeful, her mind already turning to the day's demands. The fountain is enough for a rushed morning, but today, Emilia has a few coins jingling in her purse, earned from a generous sailor the night before, and she decides to splurge on the bathhouse, a rare treat that promises a fleeting sense of renewal. The baths of Neptune, their entrance marked by a mosaic of the sea god's trident, loom just beyond the forum, their stone walls steaming with the heat of Ostia's hypercost system. Emilia joins the stream of early bathers, merchants in coarse tunics, scribes clutching wax tablets, and women like her, their eyes weary but alert. The entrance fee, as single as, is a small price for the chance to feel human again, and she hands it to the attendant, a grizzled man who barely glances at her. Inside, the air is thick with steam, the scent of olive oil and sweat mingling with the faint metallic tang of heated water. Emilia undresses, folding her tunic into a niche in the wall, trusting it won't vanish while she bathes, a risk she's learned to accept. The tepidarium's warm pool welcomes her, its water cloudy with the day's first bathers, a mix of Ostia's working class and transient visitors. She wades in, the warmth soothing her aching muscles, and lets the water lap against her skin, washing away the grime of her cubiculum. The bathhouse is a great equalizer, where a sailor's rough laughter echoes alongside a philosopher's muttered debate. Yet it's also a place of exposure, where Emilia must navigate curious stares and whispered judgments. She moves to the coldarium, the hot room, where the air burns her lungs and sweat beads on her brow. Here, she uses a strigil, a curved bronze blade, to scrape her skin, the oil and dirt curling away in satisfying strips. The act is methodical, almost meditative, a moment where she can focus on herself, not the city's demands. She overhears a merchant complaining about a delayed shipment, his voice loud and grating, and she suppresses a smile, knowing his coin might find its way to her later. The bathhouse, with its mosaics and marble, is a marvel of Ostian engineering, yet for Emilia, it's a temporary escape, a place where she can be clean, if only for an hour. Archaeological evidence, like the well-preserved baths of Neptune, shows that such spaces were central to Roman social life, their communal nature a necessity for a city without private plumbing. Emilia finishes in the frigidarium, the cold pool shocking her senses, and dries off with a coarse cloth, her skin tingling with the illusion of newness. She applies a dab of perfume, a cheap blend of myrtle and lavender, its scent a shield against the tavern's odors. Her makeup, stored in her pouch, comes next, a quick application of chalk powder to pale her cheeks, a touch of ochre for her lips, and a smudge of kohl around her eyes, not to enhance her beauty, but to hide the exhaustion that clings to her like a shadow. The bathhouse hums with life, its walls echoing with the chatter of a dozen languages: Greek, Punic, Latin, a reminder of Ostia's role as Rome's gateway to the world. Emilia lingers for a moment, watching a group of women gossip about a senator's scandal, their laughter sharp and unguarded. She envies their ease, their ability to exist without the weight of a toga that marks them as other. Yet she pushes the thought aside, knowing envy is a luxury she can't afford. She retrieves her tunic, checking it for theft, and slips it on, the fabric cool against her freshly scrubbed skin. The bathhouse has given her a moment of dignity, a rare pause before the city's demands reclaim her. She steps back into the street, the sun now climbing higher, its light glinting off the Tobias ripples. The market is in full swing, stalls laden with figs, olives, and smoked fish, their vendors shouting to draw the crowds. Emilia's stomach rumbles, a reminder that she hasn't eaten since yesterday's stale bread. But food must wait until she's earned more coins. She weaves through the crowd, her jug balanced on her shoulder, her eyes scanning for familiar faces, clients or competitors, allies or threats. The city's rhythm is relentless, its streets a stage where every step is a performance. And Emilia knows her role well. She passes a temple to Venus, its marble steps gleaming in the morning light, and offers a silent prayer not for love but for luck for a day. That brings enough coin to cover her lino escart and the tax collector demands. The historical record from Ovid to Juvenal tells us that courtesans like Emilia were both integral and marginalized. Their hygiene rituals a necessity in a city that worshipped beauty but accepted filth. Public baths and fountains were not just practical spaces but social arenas, where status was negotiated through glances and gestures. Emilia's morning ablutions, though simple, are a declaration of her resilience, a refusal to let Ostia's chaos define her. She pauses at a street corner where a baker's apprentice unloads loaves from a cart, their warmth tempting her to spend a coin she doesn't have. The boy catches her eye, offering a shy smile, and she returns it. A rare moment of connection in a city that thrives on transactions. Her mind turns to the next task, transforming herself from this scrubbed, unadorned woman into the courtesan Ostia expects. A figure bold and visible in a crowd that both desires and despises her. The toga she'll wear, bright and unmistakable, is more than clothing. It's a signal, a brand, a survival tool in a city where appearance is a currency. She adjusts her pouch, the natron and perfume tucked safely inside, and heads back toward the tavern, her steps quickening as the market's noise swells. The day is young, but already she feels its weight. The endless negotiation of body and soul in a port that never pauses. Emilia's morning has cleansed her, but it's only the first step in a dance that demands more than clean skin. It demands a transformation that turns her into the city's vision of desire. As she nears the tavern, the familiar creak of its sign swinging in the breeze greets her, a reminder that her cubiculum waits, its walls a silent witness to her next act. The streets of Ostia pulse with life, each face a story, each coin a possibility, and Emilia must become the woman who commands both. How does she craft this persona? This mask of allure that hides her weariness and draws the city's gaze? That's the art she must master next, as she prepares to step into the light of Ostia's unforgiving stage. Emilia steps back into the dim cubiculum, the creak of the tavern swinging sign fading behind her as she closes the flimsy curtain, its frayed edges brushing against the rough plaster wall. The air is heavy with the scent of her cheap myrtle perfume, now mingling with the tavern's familiar musk of sour wine and charred wood, a reminder that Ostia's pulse never slows, even as she pauses to gather herself. Her skin still tingles from the bathhouse's cold pool, her body cleansed, but her mind already racing toward the day's demands, the endless performance that awaits in the city's crowded streets. The question hums in the air like the distant drone of dock workers. How does she craft this persona? This mask of allure that hides her weariness and draws the city's gaze? For Emilia, the answer lies not just in the rituals of water and natron, but in the deliberate act of transformation, turning herself into the courtesan Ostia expects. A woman whose bright toga and painted face are as much armor as advertisement in a port city that thrives on appearances. She moves to the corner of her room where her few possessions huddle like silent allies. A cracked clay pot of makeup, a bone comb, a bronze mirror that warps her reflection into something both familiar and strange. The lamp flickers, its weak flame casting jagged shadows across the graffiti-scarred walls, where names and boasts from past clients linger like echoes of forgotten nights. Emilia kneels beside a small wooden chest, its lid scratched and splintered, and lifts it with care, revealing the garment that defines her trade, a toga muni brise, its crimson fabric vibrant even in the dim light. Unlike the stola, the long layered dress worn by Ostia's respectable matrons, this toga is short bold, and deliberately eye-catching, a legal requirement that marks her as a courtesan, a woman available for negotiation in a city that both needs and scorns her. She runs her fingers over the fabric, its weave coarse but dyed with the cheapest pigments money can buy, a scarlet that screams across the forum's dusty expanse. The toga is not just clothing, it's a billboard, a signal to sailors and merchants that Emilia is open for business. A choice she makes daily to survive in a world that offers few others. Historical texts from Ovid's playful verses to the stern edicts of Roman law confirm that courtesans were forbidden. The stola their togas, a public declaration of their status. designed to stand out in a crowd of muted tunics and cloaks. Emilia slips off a plain tunic, folding it carefully to preserve its scant threads, and drapes the toga over her shoulders, its weight familiar yet heavy with meaning. The garment clings to her frame, its hem barely reaching her knees, a stark contrast to the floor-length modesty of the matrons who pass her with curled lips. She adjusts it, ensuring the folds fall just so, accentuating her form without revealing too much. A delicate balance she's perfected through years of practice. The toga's color is no accident. Red draws the eye, a beacon in Ostia's chaotic streets, where competition is as fierce as the summer sun. She steps to the mirror, its bronze surface cloudy but sufficient, and begins the next layer of her transformation, the application of her makeup. A ritual as critical as the toga itself. From the clay pot, she scoops a pinch of chalk powder, its texture gritty between her fingers, and pats it across her cheeks, smoothing the lines of exhaustion that betray her sleepless nights. The powder settles like a thin veil, giving her skin a pale, almost ethereal glow, a contrast to the sun-browned faces of Ostia's laborers. Next comes the ochre, a ruddy paste she dabs on her lips and cheeks, its warmth softening the starkness of the chalk. Her eyes, the focal point of her allure, require the most care. She dips a twig into a small vial of coal dust, carefully tracing it along her eyelids, the dark lines sharpening her gaze, masking the fatigue that lingers from a night spent dodging drunken propositions. The makeup is not about beauty alone, it's about survival, a mask that hides her humanity from clients who prefer illusion to reality. Emilia's hands move with precision, each stroke a calculated act, transforming her into the woman the city demands, bold, visible, desirable. She pauses, catching her reflection, a stranger staring back, her face a canvas of necessity rather than vanity. The mirror's distortion only deepens the sense that she is both herself and someone else, a duality she's learned to navigate in Ostia's unforgiving streets. She reaches for her jewelry, a pair of bronze earrings shaped like tiny shells. Their clink a faint echo of the sea that surrounds her city. They're cheap, bought from a market stall near the docks, but they catch the light, drawing eyes to her face. A glass bead necklace, its colors faded from wear, loops around her neck, a small defiance against the drabness of her circumstances. Footwear is a practical choice, simple leather sandals, their soles thin from countless steps across Ostia's uneven stones. Comfort sacrificed for mobility in a city, where she might need to sprint from a bad client or a moralist's scorn. Her hair still damp from the bathhouse is her final canvas. She combs it with the bone comb, its teeth snagging on knots, and twists it into loose curls, a style that mimics the exotic allure of Gallic, women whose blonde locks are prized in Ostia's markets. She has no wig, a luxury beyond her means, but she's learned to make her dark hair shine with a dab of olive oil, its sheen catching the lamplight like a promise. The transformation is nearly complete. Emilia is no longer the woman who woke on a straw mattress. She is the courtesan, a figure crafted to command attention in a city that thrives on spectacle. She steps back, assessing her work, the crimson toga, the painted face, the glinting jewelry, all pieces of a costume that is both her livelihood and her cage. The tavern below grows louder, the clatter of cups and the roar of laughter signaling the arrival of more patrons. Sailors fresh from a voyage to Carthage, merchants flush with coin from a grain deal. Emilia knows she must join them soon. Her cubiculum no longer a refuge but a stage waiting to be vacated. She tucks her possessions into the chest, securing it with a cord, and takes a deep breath, the perfume's sharp floral note cutting through the room's musty air. The graffiti on the wall catches her eye. Emilia, worth 3 asses. A crude compliment that once made her laugh, now a reminder of the city's transactional heart. Ostia's history pieced together from inscriptions and archaeological finds reveals that courtesans like Emilia were a vital part of the city's economy, their attire and appearance regulated by law, yet celebrated in the poems of men like Marshall, who described their bold colors with both mockery and fascination. The toga mulibris, unlike the senator's white toga, was a garment of visibility. Its bright hues a legal mandate to ensure no one mistook a courtesan for a respectable woman. Emilia's choice of crimson, though dictated by necessity, is also a small act of agency. A color she knows stands out against the dusty stones of the forum. She adjusts the toga's folds one last time, ensuring it drapes just right, and slips her sandals on, their leather creaking with each step. The mirror reflects a woman ready for the city, but beneath the paint and fabric, Emilia feels the weight of her role, the constant negotiation of being seen without being truly known. The streets outside beckon, their noise a siren call she cannot ignore. The market stalls now crowded with vendors hawking olives, figs and smoked fish, their voices blending with the cries of gulls and the clatter of carts. Emilia knows her place in this chaos, a figure who must be bold yet guarded, alluring yet untouchable until the price is met. She steps toward the curtain, pausing to listen to the tavern's rhythm, a sailor's shout, a barmaid's sharp retort, the familiar sounds of a city that never pauses. Her transformation is complete, but it's only the beginning. The toga and makeup are tools, but they are not enough to secure her survival in Ostia's competitive streets. She must become more than a figure in a crowd. She must be unforgettable, a name whispered in taverns and scratched into walls. The historical record, from Juvenal's satires to the legal codes of the Roman Empire, tells us that a courtesan's appearance was a currency. Her ability to stand out a matter of survival in a city teeming with competition. Emilia's crimson toga is her first step, but it's a presence, her ability to command attention, that will carry her through the day. She pushes the curtain aside, the tavern's noise washing over her like a wave, and descends the stairs, each step a commitment to the role she must play. The barmaid glances at her, offering a nod of camaraderie, a silent acknowledgement of their shared struggle. Emilia returns it, her lips curving into a practiced smile, one she'll wear for the hours ahead. The tavern is crowded now, its tables filled with men whose eyes follow her, some curious, some calculating, all potential clients in a city where desire is as common as coin. She pauses at the doorway, the sunlight harsh after the dim cubiculum, and adjusts her toga one last time, its crimson folds catching the light like a flame. Ostia's streets stretch before her, a labyrinth of opportunity and judgment, where every glance is a transaction and every step a risk. Emilia knows she must navigate this world with care, her appearance a weapon she wields with precision. But it's not enough to simply look the part. She must become the part, a woman who commands the city's attention with every word and gesture. The market is in full swing, its stalls a riot of color and noise, vendors shouting over each other, sailors haggling for a better price, matrons casting disdainful glances as they pass. Emilia steps into the crowd, her toga a beacon, her face a mask, her heart a quiet drumbeat of resolve. She is ready, but readiness is only the beginning. The real challenge lies in turning heads, in making her name known in a city that forgets as quickly as it desires. How does she capture the eyes and coins of Ostia's transient crowds, weaving her charm through the chaos of the docks and taverns? That's the dance she must master next, as she steps fully into the city's vibrant, unforgiving stage. Emilia steps fully into Ostia's vibrant chaos, her crimson toga catching the sunlight like a flare, her painted face a mask that draws eyes from the crowded market stalls, where vendors shout over heaps of figs and smoked fish. The question lingers in the salty air. How does she capture the attention and coins of Ostia's transient crowds, weaving her charm through the clamor of docks and taverns? The answer lies not just in her appearance bold and unmistakable, but in the art. She's honed over years a dance of wit, timing and strategy that makes her more than a figure in the crowd, a name whispered in the alleys and scratched into tavern walls. The street pulses with life, the cobblestones slick with spilled wine and fish oil, the air thick with the sense of roosting meat, briny Tiber water, and the sweat of 100 bodies pressed close in the midday heat. Emilia moves with purpose, her sandals clicking against the stones, her eyes scanning the throng for opportunity, a sailor with a heavy purse, A merchant flush from a grain deal, anyone whose glance lingers too long. The forum is a riot of color and noise. Its stalls draped with linens from Egypt and amphorae from Gaul. Vendors haggling with sharp-tongued precision. Their voices a constant hum beneath the cries of gulls circling above. She pauses near a baker's stall, the warm scent of fresh loaves tempting her empty stomach. But she pushes the hunger aside, her focus on the crowd, not her own needs. A group of sailors, their tunics stained with sea salt, laugh loudly as they barter for wine, their accents thick with the cadence of Carthage. Emilia catches the eye of one, a young man with a sunburned face, and a grin too eager, and she offers a smile, calculated but warm, a silent invitation that promises more than it delivers. He hesitates, his hand brushing the pouch at his belt, but his companions pull him away, their laughter drowning out his interest. She doesn't falter, her smile fades only for a moment before she moves on, her toga swaying with each step, a beacon in the sea of muted browns and greys. Ostia's streets are her stage, and Emilia knows every corner, every shadow where a deal might be struck, every tavern where a client might linger. She heads toward the docks, where the air grows sharper with the tang of fish and tar, the creak of ships mingling with the shouts of dock workers unloading crates of olives and wine. The port is Ostia's heart, its lifeblood flowing through the merchants and sailors who flood its taverns, their coins the key to Emilia's survival. She pauses near a tavern called the Anchor, its sign weathered by sea spray, its tables spilling into the street with men whose eyes follow her crimson silhouette. She chooses her spot carefully, leaning against a stone pillar just outside the tavern's entrance, her posture relaxed but deliberate, her gaze inviting without being overt. The art of attraction, she's learned, is not in boldness alone but in suggestion, a glance that lingers, a laugh that carries just far enough to be heard. Historical records from graffiti in Pompeii to Marshall's biting poems tell us that courtesans like Emilia were masters of this craft, their presence advertised not just by their attire, but by their ability to navigate the city's social currents. She calls out to a passing merchant, her voice light but teasing, "Fresh from Alexandria, are you? Bet you've stories to share, and I've ears to listen." The merchant, a stout man with a beard flecked with grey, chuckles, his eyes appraising her, but he waves her off, his purse already light from a morning's deals. Emilia doesn't press, she knows better than to chase a lost cause. There are always more men, more coins, more chances in a city that never sleeps. She moves closer to the tavern, where a group of sailors haggle with a barmaid over watered wine, their voices loud and slurred from an early start. One, a weary man with a Punic accent, notices her, his gaze lingering on her toga's bright folds. She meets his eyes, her smile a practiced blend of warmth and mystery, and tosses a playful remark. "Careful with that wine, it'll cost you more than my company." The sailors laugh, and the man steps closer, his coin pouch jingling faintly, a sound as sweet to Emilia as the temple bells. She negotiates quickly, her voice low to avoid the barmaid's glare, settling on 2 asses for a brief encounter, a price that reflects her need to eat and the lino's looming cut. The deal is struck, and she leads him to a shadowed corner near the tavern, a familiar spot where the noise of the docks drowns out the world. The transaction is swift, mechanical, her mind already on the next client, the next coin, the endless cycle that defines her days. Emilia's skill lies not just in these moments but in the spaces between. The way she weaves through Ostia's crowds, her presence a constant advertisement. She knows the power of graffiti, the crude inscriptions that serve as the city's unofficial ledger, and she's paid a boy a few quadrans to scratch her name into a tavern wall. Emilia swift and sweet to asses well spent. The words, rough and misspelled, are her calling card, a testament to her reputation in a city where word of mouth travels faster than a ship under sail. Archaeological finds in Ostia and Pompeii reveal such graffiti, not just boasts but a form of ancient marketing, where courtesans' names and rates were etched into public spaces, a permanent record of transient lives. Emilia pauses to check one such inscription near the Anchor, her fingers tracing the letters. A rare moment of pride in a world that offers little. She moves on, her steps carrying her toward the market's edge, where the crowd thins and the air grows heavy with the scent of fish and seaweed. A competitor, a woman named Claudia with a green toga and a sharper tongue, eyes her from across the street, her own clients trailing behind like ducklings. Emilia nods, a gesture of uneasy truce, knowing that rivalry is part of the game, but so is camaraderie, a shared understanding of the city's demands. Claudia calls out, her voice carrying over the din, "Busy morning, Emilia? Save some sailors for the rest of us." Emilia laughs, the sound genuine for once, and replies, "Plenty to go around, Claudia, just don't scare them off with that glare." The exchange draws a few chuckles from passers-by, and Emilia uses the moment to slip away, her toga catching the eye of a merchant unloading crates of pottery. She approaches, her posture shifting to one of confidence, her words laced with humor. "Those pots look heavy, want a lighter burden for your coin." The merchant, flustered, mutters an excuse and hurries off, but Emilia's unfazed, her laughter trailing after him, a sound that turns heads and keeps her visible. The market is a canvas, each interaction a brushstroke, each rejection a chance to refine her approach. She knows the docks best at midday when ships unload and sailors flood the taverns, their purses heavy with pay and their minds light with wine. She moves toward a cluster of stalls near the harbor where a fishmonger guts his catch, the silver scales glinting in the sun, a mirror to the coins she seeks. A group of dock workers, their hands stained with tar, pause to watch her pass, one whistling low, a sound she acknowledges with a tilt of her head, just enough to keep him interested without committing. Her day is a series of such moments, a delicate balance of invitation and restraint. Her charmer tool as sharp as any strigil, the historical record from Plautus comedies to the inscriptions of Ostia's taverns shows that courtesans were not just passive figures but active players in the city's economy. Their banter and presence a form of street theatre that drew clients as surely as a merchant's wares. Emilia's voice, her laughter, her carefully timed glances are all part of this performance, a craft she's honed through years of survival. She pauses at her fountain, splashing water on her wrists to cool her skin, the midday heat pressing down like a physical weight. A young scribe, his tablet tucked under his arm, watches her, his eyes curious rather than lustful. A rare change. She offers him a smile, softer this time, and asks, "Writing the city's secrets, are you? I've a few to share if the price is right." He blushes, stammering a reply, and hurries off. But Emilia notes his face, knowing he might return when his courage catches up with his curiosity. The fountain's water ripples under her touch, a fleeting moment of calm before she dives back into the crowd, her toga a splash of color against the market's chaos. She knows the risks of her trade, the leering moralists who spit at her feet, the competitors who undercut her rates, the leaner who waits for his share, but she pushes these thoughts aside, focusing on the next client, the next coin. The tavern calls her back, its tables now crowded with men whose eyes follow her. Their voices a mix of Latin, Greek and Punic, a reminder of Ostia's cosmopolitan heart. She slips inside, the air cooler but thick with smoke and sweat, and takes her place near the bar, where the barmaid pours wine with a weary efficiency. Emilia's presence draws attention, her toga a signal, her laughter a law, and she works the room with ease, her words tailored to each man, a sailor's joke for one, a merchant's flattery for another. She negotiates another deal, 3 asses this time, a better rate for a longer encounter, and leads the client upstairs, her mind already calculating the cost of bread, oil, and the lino's cut. The transaction is quick, her smile never faltering, her heart a steady beat beneath the mask. She returns to the tavern, wiping a bead of sweat from her brow, her toga slightly askew, but still vibrant, still drawing eyes. The day stretches on, each moment a test of her endurance, her charm, her ability to stay one step ahead of the city's chaos. Emilia knows that attraction is only the beginning. The coins she earns are not hers to keep. They must be weighed against the demands of survival, the Lino's greed, the tax collector's ledger, the endless cycle that binds her to Ostia's streets. How does she navigate this world of fleeting gains and constant costs, turning her charm into a living while guarding her fragile dreams? That's the balance she must strike next as she moves deeper into the city's relentless rhythm. Emilia leans against the tavern's rough wooden counter, the clink of her 3 asses from her latest client still echoing in her mind. A small victory in the relentless tide of Ostia's midday bustle. The tavern, the anchor hums with the chatter of sailors and the clatter of cups, the air thick with smoke and the sharp tang of watered wine. But her thoughts are elsewhere, calculating the weight of those coins against the demands of her world. The question presses against her like the heat of the crowded room. How does she navigate this maze of fleeting gains and constant costs, turning her charm into a living while guarding the fragile dream of something more? The answer lies not in the fleeting glances or witty banter that drew her clients, but in the cold arithmetic of survival where every coin is a battle against the Lino's greed, the tax collector's ledger, and the hunger that gnaws at her empty stomach. Emilia slips the coins into a small leather pouch tied to her waist, their faint jingle a reminder of the delicate balance she must maintain in a city that thrives on transactions. The tavern's noise swells, a sailor's laugh cutting through the din, and she scans the room, her crimson toga still vibrant despite the day's wear, her painted face a mask that hides the weariness creeping into her bones. She knows the coins she's earned are not truly hers. They must be divided, bartered, and spent before they can become the freedom she dreams of. A distant hope as fragile as the lamp's flame in her cubiculum. The Lino, a man named Gaius with a scar across his cheek and a voice like gravel, waits for his cut. His presence a shadow that looms over every deal she strikes. She spots him now, lounging at a corner table, his eyes tracking her like a hawk watching a mouse. And she forces a smile, knowing that defiance will cost her more than compliance. Gaius is not cruel, not by Ostia's standards, but he is relentless. His share of her earnings attacks as inevitable as the tides. She approaches, her steps measured, her voice steady as she hands over an as, the coin disappearing into his calloused palm with a grunt of approval. "Good day so far, Emilia," he says, his tone more statement than question, and she nods. Her lips tight, knowing that 2 asses remain. Enough for bread and perhaps a dab of oil for her lamp, but not enough to change her fate. Historical records from Roman legal texts to inscriptions in Ostia's taverns tell us that Linones like Gaius were a fixture of the courtesan's world, middlemen who profited from women's labor, while offering protection and access to clients, a transaction as old as the city itself. Emilia moves back to the bar, her mind tallying her earnings 3 asses today. A modest sum in a port where a loaf of bread costs a quadrans and a night's lodging, even in a cramped cubiculum, demands far more. She knows the tax collector will come next, a dour man named Lucius who haunts the forum, his wax tablet filled with names and debts, including hers. The vectical exceptorium, a tax levied on courtesans, is a bitter reminder of her place in Ostia's hierarchy, her work registered and regulated, her existence a line in the empire's ledger. She dreads his visits, not just for the coin he takes, but for the way his eyes linger, judging her even as he profits from her trade. She's heard whispers of women who evade him, slipping through the alleys to avoid his gaze. But Emilia knows better. A missed tax means fines, or worse, a visit from the ediles, who patrol Ostia's streets with clubs and contempt. She keeps her pouch close, the coins a lifeline she guards with the same ferocity she brings to her negotiations. The tavern's crowd shifts, a new group of merchants entering, their tunics finer than the sailors, their purses heavier with sesterces from a grain deal. Emilia sees opportunity, her smile returning as she approaches, her voice lilting with practiced charm. "Gentlemen, you look like men who've conquered the market. Care to celebrate with a story?" And a smile. One, a man with a gold ring glinting on his finger, pauses, his eyes appraising her toga, her face, her confidence. He agrees, offering 5 asses for a longer encounter, a sum that makes her heart leap. Enough to cover Gaius, Lucius, and a meal with coin to spare. She leads him upstairs, her steps quick, her mind already spending the earnings. A new pair of sandals, a jar of better perfume. Small luxuries that feel like freedom in a life bound by necessity. The deal is struck, the transaction swift, and Emilia returns to the tavern. Her pouch heavier, but her shoulders no lighter, the weight of survival a constant companion. She buys a loaf from the barmaid, tearing into it with quiet urgency. The crusty bread a rare moment of satisfaction in a day that offers few. The historical record, from the writings of Suetonius to the tax rolls of Roman ports, reveals that courtesans like Emilia operated in a precarious economy. Their earnings subject to multiple claims, their lives a balance of hustle and hope. She moves to the street, the sun now high, its heat pressing against her skin, the crimson togo beacon that draws both clients and scorn. A matron pauses, her stola pristine, her eyes narrowing as she mutters something about shame. But Emilia ignores her, her focus on a group of sailors near the docks, their laughter loud and their coin pouches promising. She approaches, her banter sharper now, honed by the morning's successes back from the sea. Boys, I've a better harbor than the Tiber, and it's closer. The sailors laugh, one stepping forward, his accent thick with the lilt of Syracuse, and negotiates 3 asses, a fair price for a quick encounter. Emilia agrees, leading him to a shadowed alley, her movements swift, her smile unwavering. Even as her mind calculates the cost of Gaius's cut, the tax, the oil for her lamp. The transaction complete, she returns to the market, her pouch a little heavier, her dreams a little closer, though still out of reach. The market is a kaleidoscope of faces and voices, Greek traders haggling over Amphiry-Punic sailors, swapping tales of storms, Roman scribes scribbling deals on wax tablets. And Emilia weaves through them, her presence a constant advertisement, her toga a splash of color. In the crowd, she knows her niche, not just her appearance, but her skills, the stories she tells, the song she hums when a client lingers. Small talents that set her apart in a city teeming with competitors. Clodia, the green-togged courtesan from earlier, pauses again, her own clients trailing. And Emilia offers a nod, a silent acknowledgement of their shared struggle. Clodia returns it, her eyes tired but sharp, and calls out, "Keep singing, Emilia. It's the only thing keeping those sailors from my door." Emilia laughs, the sound carrying over the market's din, and replies, "They come for the song." Clodia, but stay for the smile. The exchange is brief, but it bolsters her. A reminder that she's not alone, even in a city that thrives on competition. She moves toward the forum, where the tax collector Lucius is likely waiting, his tablet ready to record her earnings. She spots him near a temple to Mercury, his face sour as he tallies another worker's debt. And she approaches, her posture straight, her voice calm. "Lucius, another day. Another is for the Empire." He grunts, taking the coin, his stylus scratching her name into the wax. A transaction that feels like theft, but is as inevitable as the tides. The vectical acceptorium, as historical texts, like those of Tacitus note, was a tax that marked courtesans as both essential and expendable, their labor fueling Ostia's economy while their lives were confined to its margins. Emilia walks away, her pouch lighter, her resolve unshaken, knowing that every coin she keeps is a step toward a dream she barely dares to name: freedom, a life beyond the tavern's walls. The day wears on, the market's noise a constant drumbeat, and Emilia works tirelessly, her banter drawing clients, her smile masking the ache in her feet, the hunger that lingers despite the bread. She negotiates another deal for asses, this time a merchant who wants a story as much as a service, and she obliges, spinning a tale of a sailor lost to Neptune's wrath, her voice soft and rhythmic, a skill that earns her a rare compliment: "You're worth more than 4. Emilia. She smiles, pocketing the coins, but the praise is fleeting, the lino's cut looms, and the tax collector's shadow never fades. She buys a small jar of olive oil from a stall, its weight a comfort in her hand, a promise of light for her cubiculum tonight. The historical record from inscriptions to legal codes shows that courtesans like Emilia were often trapped in a cycle of debt and dependence, their earnings siphoned by loans and taxes, yet Emilia clings to her small victories, each coin a defiance of that cycle. She pauses near a fountain, splashing water on her face to refresh her makeup, the chalk powder smudging slightly under the heat. A group of children play nearby, their laughter a stark contrast to the market's hustle. And Emilia watches them for a moment, her heart twisting with a longing she rarely acknowledges. A life where survival doesn't demand her body and soul. She pushes the thought aside, her focus returning to the crowd, the next client, the next coin. The tavern calls her back, its tables now packed, the air thick with the scent of roasted fish and spilled wine. She takes her place near the bar, her toga still bright, her smile still sharp, and works the room. Her voice weaving through the noise, drawing eyes and coins with every word. The day is far from over, and Emilia knows that survival is not just about earning, but enduring, facing the risks that lurk in every shadowed alley and every client's gaze. The coins she has earned are a fragile shield against a world that demands more than it gives. A world of disease, violence, and scorn that she must navigate with every step. How does she face these dangers, balancing the need to survive with the hope of something more? A legacy carved in the margins of Ostia's history, that's the challenge she meets head-on, as she braces for the trials that await in the city's unforgiving night. Emilia stands in the fading light of Ostia's tavern, the anchor, her crimson toga slightly rumpled from the day's relentless hustle. Her pouch of coins a fragile shield against the weight of survival. The tavern's air is thick with the scent of spilled wine and roasted fish, the noise of sailors. And merchants a constant hum, but her mind is on the challenges that lurk beyond the flickering oil lamps, the unseen threats that define her world. The question hangs heavy as persistent as the salt in the air. How does she face the dangers of disease, violence, and scorn? Balancing the need to survive with the hope of leaving a mark in a city that forgets as quickly as it consumes? The answer lies not in the coins she's earned or the charm she's wielded, but in the quiet strength she summons to navigate a life where every step is a risk, every client a potential peril, and every day a testament to her resilience. Emilia adjusts a toga, smoothing its folds with hands that tremble slightly. Not from fear, but from the exhaustion that seeps into her bones as the sun dips low, casting long shadows across the cobblestones outside. The tavern is crowded, its tables packed with men whose laughter is loud but fleeting, their eyes tracking her movements with a mix of desire and judgment. She knows the risks of her trade, the diseases that spread in the close quarters of Ostia's alleys, the violence that can erupt from a drunken sailor's temper, the scorn that stings sharper than any blade. Historical records from the medical writings of Galen to the graffiti of Pompeii reveal that courtesans like Emilia faced a litany of dangers, their bodies vulnerable to ailments with no cure, their lives at the mercy of clients who saw them as less than human. She carries a small pouch of herbs, myrrh and rue crushed into a paste, a crude remedy she applies to ward off illness. Its bitter scent a faint comfort as she moves through the crowd. A sailor, his face flushed with wine, calls out to her, his words slurred but sharp, demanding her attention with a coin held high. Emilia approaches, her smile practiced, her voice light. A coin for a moment, friend. But let's keep it kind, the night's young. He laughs, but his grip on her arm is too tight. A warning she reads instantly, her heart quickening as she gently pulls away. Her words turning firm, easy now, or you'll find the air dials less forgiving than me. The sailor backs off, muttering, and Emilia exhales, her composure unbroken, her mind already scanning for the next client, the next coin. Violence is a shadow that follows her, as constant as the De Beers tide, and she's learned to dodge it with quick steps and sharper words. A skill honed in Ostia's unforgiving streets, she moves to the bar where the barmaid, a woman named Flavia with a scar above her brow, offers a knowing nod, a silent acknowledgement of their shared vigilance. Flavia slides a cup of watered wine across the counter, a small gesture of camaraderie, and Emilia takes it, the sour liquid a brief respite from the day's demands. The tavern is a refuge, but only just. Its walls a thin barrier against the city's chaos. Its patrons a mix of opportunity and threat. Emilia sips the wine, her eyes catching Clodia, the green-togged courtesan, at a nearby table, laughing with a client but glancing her way, a spark of understanding in her gaze. They are rivals, yes, but also allies, women who share the same risks, the same scorn, the same fragile hopes. Emilia raises her cup slightly, and Clodia mirrors the gesture. Their bond a quiet defiance against a world that seeks to erase them. The historical record, from inscriptions in Ostia's ruins to Juvenal's satires, shows that courtesans often formed such alliances. Their friendships a lifeline in a trade that offered little mercy. Emilia's thoughts drift to a memory, a night when Clodia shared her own herbs, a remedy for a fever that had left Emilia shivering in her cubiculum, a kindness that cost Clodia nothing but meant everything. She finishes the wine, the cup's rough edge grazing her lips, and returns to the crowd, her toga a splash of crimson in the dim light, her presence a beacon despite the risks that surround her. The street outside calls, its noise spilling through the tavern's open door, the cries of vendors fading as the market winds down, replaced by the hum of evening revelry. Emilia steps into the cool air, the sun now a sliver above the horizon, painting the Tiber gold. She knows the dangers intensify as night falls, the alleys darker, the clients bolder, the moralists harsher. A matron passes, her stola pristine, her eyes cutting through Emilia like a blade, muttering meretrix under her breath, a word that stings but no longer wounds. Emilia lifts her chin, her smile defiant, and moves toward the docks where the last ships unload, their crews eager for the city's pleasures. She pauses near a warehouse, its stone walls etched with graffiti. Emilia, swift and sweet, a testament to her reputation, a small legacy in a city that buries its stories in dust. She traces the letters, their edges worn by weather, and feels a flicker of pride. Not for the praise, but for the endurance it represents. The docks are alive with movement, sailors hauling crates, merchants tallying goods, and Emilia navigates the chaos with ease, her voice carrying over the din, fresh from the sea. I've a story to warm you better than wine. A young sailor, his tunic stained with tar, grins and approaches, offering to assist for a quick encounter. Emilia agrees, leading him to a shadowed corner, her movements swift, her mind alert for any sign of trouble. The transaction is uneventful, the sailor polite, a rarity that leaves her grateful but wary, knowing that luck is as fleeting as the coins she earns. She returns to the street, her pouch heavier, but the weight of the day presses harder, her feet aching, her makeup smudging under the evening's humidity. The historical record, from Roman medical texts to archaeological finds, notes that courtesans used crude contraceptives, vinegar-soaked sponges, or herbal pastes to protect themselves. But Emilia knows their limits, the risk of disease a constant shadow. She applies her paste in the privacy of an alley, the ritual a small act of control in a life governed by chance. The night deepens, the air growing cooler, the stars faint above Ostia's haze, and Emilia returns to the anchor where Flavia and Clodia now sit together, sharing a loaf of bread and a jug of wine. Emilia joins them, the three women a small island in the tavern storm, their laughter a shield against the leers of drunken patrons. Flavia tells a story of a client who paid with a counterfeit coin, and Clodia counters with a tale of a merchant who fell asleep mid-negotiation, their voices weaving a tapestry of humor and hardship. Emilia adds her own story of a sailor who sang a Punic lullaby, his voice surprisingly soft, a moment that lingered long after his coin was spent. These stories, shared in the tavern's smoky light, are more than amusement, they are survival, a way to reclaim their humanity in a city that reduces them to transactions. Emilia feels the weight of the day lift, if only for a moment, the camaraderie a balm for the scorn she faces outside. The historical record, from inscriptions to literary fragments, suggests that such bonds were common among courtesans. Their friendships acquired rebellion against a society that marginalized them. Emilia tears a piece of bread, its crust rough but warm, and passes it to Clodia, a gesture that speaks louder than words. The tavern's noise fades as a client approaches, a merchant with a heavy purse and a heavier gaze. And Emilia rises, her smile returning, her toga adjusted with a quick flick of her wrist. She negotiates for Assis a good rate and leads him upstairs, her steps steady despite the ache in her legs. The transaction is quick, but his words linger, a crude remark about her worth that cuts deeper than she'll admit. She returns to the tavern, her smile intact, but her heart bruised, and rejoins Flavia and Clodia. Their presence a reminder that she's not alone. The night stretches on, each client a risk, each coin a step toward survival. But Emilia endures, her resilience forged in the crucible of Ostia streets. She prays to Venus as she passes the temple, its marble steps glowing in the moonlight. Not for love, but for strength, for one more day to carve her name into the city's memory. The graffiti on the tavern's walls, the stories shared with Clodia and Flavia, the coins that passed through her hands, all are threads in a legacy that history might overlook, but Ostia will not forget. Emilia's life, like those of countless courtesans, is woven into the city's fabric, her resilience a testament to the women who thrived in its margins, their names etched in stone and whispered in alleys. As the tavern quiets, the last patrons stumbling into the night, Emilia pauses, her pouch heavy with the day's earnings, her heart heavy with its costs. She looks at Clodia and Flavia, their faces tired but unbroken, and feels a spark of hope. Not for freedom, perhaps, but for meaning, for a story that endures beyond the coins and the scorn. What does it mean to live a day like Emilia's? To face Ostia's dangers and still find moments of laughter, of defiance, of humanity? That's the story we've uncovered, a tale that stretches beyond one woman to the heart of a city. A legacy waiting to be explored as we reflect on her place in history's vast tapestry. The moon hangs low over Ostia, its pale light spilling across the Taber's ripples, casting a silver glow on the cobblestones. Where Emilia stands, a crimson toga faded in the twilight, but still a defiant splash of color against the city's shadows. The anchor tavern behind her hums with the last of the night's revelry, the laughter of sailors, and the clink of cups fading into a weary quiet. But Emilia's day lingers in the air, a story of resilience woven through the chaos of a port city that never truly sleeps. The question posed at the end of her long day echoes still. What does it mean to live a life like Emilia's? To face Ostia's dangers and still find moments of laughter, defiance, and humanity? The answer lies not just in the coins she has earned or the risks she has endured, but in the indelible mark she leaves on a city that both needs and forgets her legacy. Etched in the margins of history's vast tapestry, Emilia steps away from the tavern, her sandals scuffing against the worn stones, her pouch heavy with the day's earnings, each coin a hard-won victory against the Lino's greed, the tax collector's ledger, and the hunger that gnaws at her core. The streets are quieter now, the market stalls shuttered, their vendors gone to their homes, leaving only the gulls and the distant creak of ships to fill the silence. She pauses at a fountain, its water still trickling despite the hour, and splashes her face, the cool droplets washing away the last smudges of her chalk powder and ochre, revealing the woman beneath the courtesan's mask. Her reflection wavers in the basin, a face both young and weathered, a testament to the years spent navigating Ostia's relentless demands. The city Rome's gateway to the world thrives on the labor of women like Emilia, their lives a thread in the fabric of its prosperity, yet their stories are rarely told buried beneath the grandeur of temples and the wealth of trade. Historical records, from the graffiti scratched into Ostia's walls to the writings of poets like Ovid and Martial, offer glimpses of these women, their names and deeds preserved in fragments, a whisper of their resilience against the empire's weight. Emilia's day from the moment she woke in her cramped cubiculum to the final client she served in the tavern. Dim light is a microcosm of this untold history, a life lived in the spaces between necessity and hope. She walks toward the temple of Venus, its marble steps gleaming under the moon, and offers a final prayer, not for love or wealth, but for strength for one more day to carve her name into the city's memory. The temple stands as a silent witness, its columns a reminder of Ostia's divine patrons. Yet Emilia's faith is grounded in the practical, in the coins she's earned, the friendships she's forged, the small acts of defiance that keep her spirit alive. She thinks of Claudia and Flavia, their laughter in the tavern a lifeline through the day's trials, their shared stories a shield against the scorn of matrons and the violence of drunken clients. These women, bound by their trade, are her family, their camaraderie a rebellion against a world that seeks to reduce them to transactions. Emilia's legacy, like theirs, is not in gold or glory, but in the quiet endurance that shapes a city's soul, a truth history often overlooks but cannot erase. The graffiti on the tavern's walls, Emilia, swift and sweet, is more than a boast, it's a record, a claim to existence in a city that buries its stories in dust. Archaeological finds in Ostia and Pompeii, from inscriptions to the remains of Lupinaria, confirm that courtesans were integral to the urban economy, their labor taxed and regulated. There lives a balance of visibility and vulnerability. Emilia's crimson toga, her painted face, her witty banter, all were tools of survival. But they were also acts of agency, a refusal to be defined solely by the city's demands. She passes a group of sailors, their voices low as they stumble toward the docks, and one nods to her, a rare gesture of respect that catches her off guard. She returns it, her smile genuine for once, a fleeting connection that reminds her of her humanity in a trade that often strips it away. The night air is cool, carrying the salt of the sea and the faint scent of olive oil from her lamp, a reminder of the small luxuries she's earned: the jar of oil, the loaf of bread, the hope of a better day. Emilia's life is a cycle of such moments, each day a battle to earn enough, to endure enough, to dream enough to keep going. The historical record, from legal codes to literary fragments, tells us that many courtesans were bound by debt or slavery, their earnings siphoned by linones and taxes, yet Emilia's resilience shines through, her ability to find joy in a shared laugh, pride in a well-negotiated deal, strength in a prayer whispered to Venus. She reaches her cubiculum, the tavern's noise now a distant hum, and lights her lamp, its weak flame casting shadows across the graffiti-scarred walls. She sits on her straw mattress, the straw crunching beneath her, and counts her coins, 7 asses, after Gaius's cut and Lucius's tax. Enough for food oil and a small surplus she hides beneath a loose floorboard, a secret hoard. She dreams might one day buy her freedom. The dream is fragile, as unlikely as a calm sea in winter, but it's hers, a spark that keeps her moving through the days. She thinks of the stories she's shared with Claudia and Flavia, the sailor's lullaby, the merchant's compliment, the moments that make her more than a name on a wall. These are her legacy, not just the coins or the graffiti, but the life she's lived, the humanity she's preserved in a city that thrives on forgetting. Ostia's history is not just in its warehouses or its temples, but in the women like Emilia, whose labor fueled its prosperity, whose resilience shaped its character. The inscriptions found in Ostia's ruins, the tales of poets and satirists, all point to a truth that courtesans were not just marginalized figures, but vital players in the city's daily life, their stories a counterpoint to the empire's grandeur. Emilia's day, from the dawn's first light to the moon's soft glow, is a testament to this truth. A single thread in a tapestry that stretches across centuries, connecting her to the countless women who walked these streets before and after her. She lies back on her mattress, the lamp's flame flickering, and closes her eyes. The sounds of Ostia fading into a distant lullaby, the creak of ships, the murmur of the Tiber, the whisper of her own breath. Tomorrow will bring another day, another struggle, another chance to carve her name into the city's memory. But for now, she rests, her heart steady, her spirit unbroken. Her story is not just hers, it's Ostia's, a city built on the labor and laughter of women like her, whose lives, though often forgotten, are the heartbeat of its history. And so, as we leave Emilia in her cubiculum, her coins hidden, her dreams alive, we're left with a question that lingers beyond her story. What does it mean to be remembered not in the marble of temples or the gold of empires, but in the quiet, resilient lives that shape a city's soul? That's the journey we've taken on History Orbit, a dive into the untold stories that make history pulse with life. If Emilia's story moved you, hit that subscribe button and join us for more journeys into the past, where every life, no matter how small, leaves a mark. Drop a comment below, tell us what you do in Emilia's sandals, or share where you're watching from, whether it's a rainy evening in London or a starry night in Cairo. Let's keep exploring the stories that history almost forgot together.